Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Simple English Chalks. I'm so happy you're here with us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. If you're listening while walking, driving, cooking, or just relaxing at home, thank you for spending your time with us.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here again. I always look forward to these conversations because we get to learn English while talking about amazing real-life topics. And today's topic is both fascinating and powerful.
That's true. You know, when I was a child, I watched a documentary about earthquakes, and I couldn't believe that the ground itself could suddenly move. It sounded impossible to me. I remember asking my family, can the earth really shake like that? They smiled and said yes, and sometimes it's very dangerous.
I had a similar experience. The first time I saw a video of buildings moving during an earthquake, I was shocked. It made me realize how strong nature can be. That's why today's episode is all about the biggest earthquakes in history and the stories behind them.
And don't worry if English isn't your first language. We'll explain everything in simple, clear English. We'll also repeat important words, use easy examples, and have natural conversations that help you improve your listening skills.
By the end of this episode, you'll know useful vocabulary about earthquakes, understand how they happen in simple terms, and learn about some of the most famous earthquakes ever recorded. You'll also hear natural English expressions that people really use in conversations.
That's our goal! Learning English should be interesting, and real stories make learning much more enjoyable. Before we continue, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced an earthquake? Or have you only seen one in videos or movies? Tell us in the comments. Also, let us know which country you're listening from. And if you enjoy learning English with real conversations like this, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to Simple English Talks. Your support helps us create more content for learners around the world.
All right, let's begin our journey and explore some of the biggest and most unforgettable earthquakes in history.
Let's start with the basics. First of all, what is an earthquake? In very simple English, an earthquake is when the ground shakes because of movement inside the earth. That's the basic idea.
We can even make a very simple sentence pattern. Subject plus verb plus object. For example, the ground shakes. Another example, the earth moves. And another one, people feel the shaking.
Exactly. Short sentences are often the easiest to understand. You don't need difficult grammar to explain something important.
Let's look at a few more examples. The house shakes. The table moves. The windows rattle. People run outside. The earthquake ends. Notice that every sentence is short and clear.
When I explain this topic to my friends, I usually keep my language simple too. I might say, the ground started shaking and everyone became scared. That's natural everyday English.
Here's another useful word, tremor. A tremor is a small earthquake or a slight shaking of the ground. Sometimes people don't even notice a tiny tremor.
Another important word is magnitude. Magnitude tells us how strong an earthquake is. When people say it was a magnitude 7 earthquake, they're talking about its measured strength.
Let's practice some easy sentences. The earthquake was strong. The tremor was small. The magnitude was high. The people stayed calm. The city needed help.
You don't have to memorize every scientific word today. Focus on understanding the meaning through simple examples.
Here's a question for you. Can you make your own sentence using the word earthquake? Try saying it out loud before listening to the rest of the episode.
Good idea. Speaking out loud is one of the fastest ways to improve your English.
Here's another challenge. Can you make a sentence with the word shake? Maybe something like, my hands shake when I'm nervous.
That's a great example because the verb shake isn't only used for earthquakes. People can shake with fear, cold weather, or excitement.
Exactly.
English words often have several meanings depending on the situation.
Now let's talk a little about why earthquakes happen. Deep under the ground, huge pieces of rock slowly move over long periods of time. Sometimes they become stuck. Pressure builds up. Then, suddenly, they move, releasing energy that causes the ground to shake. Think about pushing a heavy chair across the floor. At first, it doesn't move. You push harder and harder, then suddenly it slides. That sudden movement is a simple way to imagine what happens underground. That's a nice comparison. Of course, the Earth is much more complicated, but the example helps us understand the basic idea. Have you ever tried opening a stuck door? Nothing happens at first. Then suddenly it opens. That quick release can also help you imagine stored pressure. Let's practice another useful sentence pattern. Pressure builds. Pressure increases. Pressure is released. The ground shakes. People often use these simple verbs in news reports and conversations.
Now, let's look at negative forms. The ground doesn't shake every day. My city doesn't often have earthquakes. We don't know the exact time of every future earthquake. Notice the use of don't and doesn't. They're common and very useful. That's right. Negative sentences help us explain what is not happening. Here's another listener challenge. Can you say, my town doesn't have many earthquakes? Or maybe your answer is different. Say your own sentence out loud.
And if your area does have earthquakes, you can say, my town sometimes experiences earthquakes.
Let's also learn some useful vocabulary that appears in news stories. Epicenter, fault line, aftershock, damage, rescue, emergency, shelter.
Don't worry if those words seem difficult at first. You'll hear them again and again, and repetition helps learning.
Let's use them in simple examples. The rescue team arrived quickly. The aftershock surprised everyone. The emergency lasted several hours. The shelter protected many families.
Here's a little conversation. I ask, did you feel the earthquake? You answer, yes, I did. Then I ask, was it strong? You answer, no, it wasn't very strong. Simple questions and simple answers build confidence.
Another one. Are you safe? Yes, I'm safe. Did your family stay calm? Yes, they did. These patterns are useful in many real situations.
We'd also love to hear your own example sentences. Write one sentence using earthquake and another using shake in the comments. Keep them simple. Simple English is good English.
And here's a quick summary before we continue in the next part. Today, we've learned what an earthquake is, some important vocabulary, simple sentence structures, and easy ways to talk about shaking and natural events. That's already a great step forward in your English learning journey.
Welcome back. Now that we understand the basic idea of an earthquake, let's talk about some of the biggest earthquakes in history. We'll learn new English words while also learning about real events.
That's my favorite way to study English. You don't just memorize vocabulary, you learn it through interesting stories and real situations.
Exactly. Let's start with a very useful sentence pattern. Subject plus happened plus place plus time. For example, the earthquake happened in Chile in 1960.
Another example is, a powerful earthquake struck Japan in 2011. You may also hear, an earthquake hit Indonesia, or a massive earthquake shook Alaska.
Notice that English speakers often use different verbs. They say an earthquake happened, struck, hit, or shook an area. All of these are common in news reports.
Let's look at one of the most famous examples. In 1960, Chile experienced the strongest earthquake ever recorded. Its magnitude was 9.5, and it caused huge destruction across a large area.
Imagine hearing the ground move for several minutes. Buildings collapse, roads crack, and people rush to find safety. It's a frightening situation.
Here's another useful sentence. The earthquake caused serious damage. The pattern is simple. Subject plus caused plus object.
We can change the object, too. The earthquake caused fear. The earthquake caused fires. The earthquake caused waves. The earthquake caused major problems.
Let's continue with another famous event. In 1964, Alaska experienced another extremely powerful earthquake. Even though many areas had low population, the earthquake still caused severe damage and changed the landscape.
Here's another useful word. Coastline. A coastline is where land meets the sea. Some earthquakes can even change parts of a coastline.
And sometimes earthquakes under the ocean create another dangerous event, a tsunami.
A tsunami is a series of very large sea waves caused by sudden movement under the water. It's different from ordinary ocean waves. Let's practice. The earthquake created a tsunami. The tsunami reached the coast. People moved to higher ground. Emergency workers helped families. Here's a question for everyone listening. Can you make your own sentence using the word tsunami? Say it out loud before continuing.
And if you'd like, write your sentence in the comments too. We always enjoy reading your examples.
Millions of people watched the news in shock. Cars, boats, and buildings were carried away by the water. Rescue workers and volunteers worked day and night to help affected communities.
Notice another useful expression, worked day and night. It simply means working continuously with great effort.
Here's another expression you might hear. The community came together. That means people helped each other during a difficult time.
English has many expressions that describe teamwork and kindness during emergencies.
Let's try a small conversation. Where were you during the earthquake? I was at home. Were you scared? Yes, I was. Did everyone stay safe? Thankfully, yes.
Very natural English. Short answers are completely normal in everyday conversation.
Both sentences communicate the same idea, but one sounds much more formal.
Another formal sentence could be, emergency services responded immediately. A casual version is, help arrived very quickly.
If you're having everyday conversations, don't worry about sounding too formal. Clear and natural English is usually the best choice.
Here's a quick practice activity. I'll say the formal sentence. You change it into simpler English. Residents evacuated immediately. Your answer could be, people left the area quickly.
Great job. Here's another. Authorities issued a warning. Simple version? The government warned people.
Small changes like these make English easier to understand without changing the meaning.
Here are 3 learning tips. First, learn words in complete sentences instead of alone. Second, repeat new vocabulary out loud several times. Third, connect new words with real stories so they're easier to remember.
That's exactly what we're doing today. Real history helps make vocabulary meaningful instead of just a list in a notebook.
We'd also love your participation. In the comments, write one sentence about Chile, Alaska, or Japan using today's vocabulary. Even a short sentence is excellent practice.
Before moving on, let's review the key ideas. We learned useful verbs like happened, struck, hit, and shook. We practiced words like tsunami, coastline, damage, and community. We also compared formal and informal English and used real historical events to make our learning more memorable.
Now let's build even more confidence by learning how people naturally talk about earthquakes in everyday conversations.
That's important because textbooks and real conversations aren't always exactly the same.
Imagine your friend tells you, "I felt an earthquake last night." You could answer, "Really? Was everyone okay?" That's a very natural response.
Or maybe someone says, the whole house started shaking. You might reply, that must have been scary. Notice the phrase must have been. Native speakers use it all the time to express a reasonable guess.
Here's another common sentence. "I couldn't believe it." That means something was so surprising that it was difficult to accept.
Let's build a short conversation. I say, "Did you feel it?" You answer, "Yes, everything was moving." I ask, "Were you frightened?" You answer, "At first, yes, but everyone stayed calm."
Here's another useful expression. It happened so suddenly. You can also say, it happened without warning. Both sound very natural. Let's imagine another situation. You're talking to a coworker. They ask, "Is your family safe?" You answer, "Yes, thankfully everyone is okay." The word thankfully is very common in conversations after difficult situations.
We also often hear people say, what a relief. That means they feel thankful because something bad didn't become worse.
Let's practice politeness too. Instead of saying, "Were you terrified?" you might gently ask, "Were you okay?" It's softer and often sounds kinder.
Tone matters just as much as vocabulary. A calm voice and caring words make conversations more respectful.
Another helpful phrase is, "I'm sorry you went through that." It's a simple way to show empathy when someone shares a difficult experience. Let's practice another dialogue. My friend says, "Our apartment was damaged." I answer, "I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope everything gets better soon."
Those expressions aren't only useful for earthquakes. You can use them whenever someone experiences a difficult situation. Here's another speaking challenge. Repeat after yourself. I'm glad you're safe. I hope your family is okay. Take care of yourself. Simple words can mean a lot.
Now let's do a mini practice together. I ask, "What happened?" You answer, "There was a strong earthquake." I ask, "Were people injured?" You answer, "Some people were, but rescue teams arrived quickly." Great practice! Speaking these sentences out loud helps your confidence grow little by little. Here's another useful expression. It happened so suddenly. You can also say, it happened without warning. One final challenge before our next section. Create 3 short sentences using today's vocabulary and post them in the comments. Don't worry if they're not perfect. Every sentence is progress.
Let's finish this section with a quick review. Today we've talked naturally about historical earthquakes, practiced everyday conversations, learned caring and polite expressions, explored formal and informal language, and strengthened our speaking skills with simple, practical English.